I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us a guest that's one of my favorites, very popular guy. He's a documentary filmmaker. He is a legendary radio host. He is also a published author with several very popular books. His latest is called Terminator, and it talks about the termination of the human species and the evil around AI. He has also a brand new DVD out, The Forbidden History. It's about the Egyptian presence in North America, Pacific Rim, the Egyptian presence of that. It's a fantastic documentary film, very good. But I want to just talk to you, before I bring him on, about the AI phenomenon, artificial intelligence. And, he was out, and actually I had a few months ago, and he was out talking about how dangerous artificial intelligence is. Well, isn't it funny that Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur, cutting-edge technologist Elon Musk has the same fears about artificial intelligence, and he's not talking about delivering your groceries or taking your job at McDonald's. And then up pops in the last week or so this Mark Cuban, the multi-billionaire that owns the Dallas Mavericks and also is on Shark Tank and is a technologist as well. Mark Cuban on AI, artificial intelligence. If you don't think a Terminator will appear, you're crazy. He was talking to a bunch of high school kids. That's well documented. And I want to bring on Steve Quayle. Steve Quayle from stevequayle.com. And, you're out with, this new DVD. You're out with your new book, Terminated. And you have a big conference coming up in Branson, Missouri. We're going to get to that in just a minute in the middle of September. But I want to just start with the AI and the ongoing coup that's happening in our country. And you said this in the pre-interview, you say it's all part of AI. It's all part of the master plan, this coup to take down President Trump and take down America. Let's start there.
Well, first of all, the United States, in my opinion, by all evidence presented, is undergoing a behind-the-scenes total attempt to overthrow and take down President Trump and to identify all his followers and the American people by whatever means possible. I believe the orchestrated attempt and basically takedown underway going on to assassinate Alex Jones. Those of us who've been on talk radio, I've been on talk radio as a host for 25 years. The entire program behind that is based on artificial intelligence. We have assassination algorithms, not just AI, but AA. And what is being postulated is simply this: to identify, vilify, nullify, destroy. Look at how it's gone. Donald Trump, bad man. He vilify all the false accusations against him. Nullify. He's not fit to be president. Or of the IVND formula. Destroy. So the full scale, I would call backroom overthrow of the duly elected president is gone on with such extreme hatred and malice and a supernatural wickedness that even John Brennan, who is a Muslim and who was, called on the carpet, if you look on some of the latest pictures of him, you'll see him doing this, Greg, putting his lips together, and look in his eyes. His eyes, there's no life in those eyes. And I'm talking about being bloodshot. But what is happening is the intelligence community, the Department of Justice, and all of the federal agencies, the State Department, have all in the back rooms, and I believe they're all occultists. They all belong to secret brotherhoods or secret sisterhoods. But at the end of the day, they've been promised plenty of cash and plenty of prestige and power if they will but just buy the lie. And that is what's going on, in my opinion. The people who are listening to this broadcast, who listen to you, Greg, weekly, who listen to me whenever I appear, thank you for this opportunity, have got to understand your children and their grandchildren do not have a future with this people, because only the elite will be allowed to live. Everything in the world of genetics, everything in the world of molecular biology, everything in the world of neurobiology, everything that's being done, they are accelerating their plan to literally put us into a 5G. Like I said earlier when we were talking off screen, Imagine a space helmet, and everything in that helmet is designed to make war on your brain, to control you, to read your thoughts, to put thoughts, and ultimately to try you in a pre-crime trial. This is what's going on, and I'm telling people the most important statement I know concerning 5G is a rally cry of all of those who understand the supernatural, in other words, wicked entrapment of mankind, is to flee 5G if you want to be free.
I want to talk about free speech under attack. A free speech under attack. We have a full-blown soft coup. Talk about that.
Well, okay, first of all, look at who's being censored. I've been censored dramatically. I received an email, but Alex Jones is a poster child for censorship. You know, I went from having 1.5 billion hits a year on my website now to a little under 100 million. Now, to a lot of people, that's a big deal. But I received an email yesterday, and yesterday would be on the Thursday, the 9th of August, that basically said, I'm in the, you know, I'm with the military, and you're censored on all channels. You cannot get to you. We're not allowed to get to you. And the thing is if we try and get to you, we get a little notice to appear before the IT to defend why we want to get on your website, Steve. So it's not just me. It's the idea, Greg, that by divorcing humanity from its true history, and that's why I put out this book, the DVD, and this isn't a pitch, but may I just repeat the title? If you understand that the Smithsonian has been the gatekeeper for, there you go, I think I don't have enough light there. I get too much light. But anyway, the title is The Egyptian Presence in the Americas and the Pacific Rim, the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. For the first time in history, someone has broken rank who's been in the basement of the Smithsonian. This applies to what we're going to talk about. To see the actual Egyptian artifacts, Egyptian mummies, and be told and shown giants, skeletons, but also told that we have giants in the Smithsonian 21 feet tall. In 1877, this is an introduction to where I'm going to go into the secret societies. In 1877, a 21-foot giant with slits like reptilian eyes, tusks that were 6 inches long, and a beard 6 feet long were seen by over 300 witnesses in the Montgomery, Alabama area. And that's in the old newspapers. See, what people have got to understand, the reason why everything is covered up is they have to create a contemporary narrative that is totally divorced from historic reality. And this DVD that I'm talking about, every single artist sketch was based on people that have talked to me over 25 years in the military, unhappy campers in the intelligence community. So when you see the artwork on this, even for instance, the island of Dr. Moreau, human animal hybrids have been in existence for a long time. A man came to Bozeman, Montana at around 2000, the year 2000, and with how should I say this, such nefarious credentials, yet I watched him weep. This is a guy that had his identity changed. He worked for a 3-letter agency and talked to me about the underground bases where human and animal DNA had been combined for hybrids. And he talked about things crying out to me, help me, I'm human. And he said to me, he said, Steve, they weren't human. And I dropped him off at Bozeman's Gallatin Airport, and he was in tears. This guy had to have his face altered due to plastic surgery because he was pretty infamous as a hitter. That is an assassin. So over the years, Greg, the only way I can go with anything is to try and get multiple sources to verify. Now, what is the central theme? He, who I was trying to lead to Jesus, I failed. He told me of how deep involved the occult is and that it controls everything. You go into the history of MK Ultra with the CIA, you go into everything that we know. William Casey's statement that we'll know, the former director of CIA said, we'll know that we've been effective when everything the American people believe is a lie. Aldous Huxley said the ultimate time period of the end would come when pharmacology would take over the control of mankind. Well, again, all those things I'm talking about came from the Genesis 6 narrative, The sons of God saw the daughters of earth were fair, and that's who controls the world behind the scenes. It's not the banking families of Europe. Oh, yeah, they've been instrumental. They yielded their control and their allegiance to Satan. But beyond that, it's a fallen angel. Jesus said a third of the angels fell, a third. So, and we're told that the angels are almost innumerable. So that's a lot of fallen angels. What do? Hang out on clouds waiting for their end, or hang out in hell waiting for the lake of fire? No, they're active. We're told that. But see, people don't want to deal with the fact that technology has a spiritual basis. And the Book of Enoch, which is basically one of the oldest manuscripts found from the, not only manuscripts, but based on the Dead Sea Scrolls and the oldest manuscripts, are explicit in talking about this group of a supernatural group of fallen angels doing their best to destroy mankind because they know they have an end. And so when we're talking about giants, we're talking about extractable DNA of something that was not all human and not all fallen angel, a composite that had a life force that the armies of the world want to incorporate and put that into the soldiers. So it's basically Westworld on super soldier steroids, and that's why it's relevant, because all of it is based on the secret, occult, hidden knowledge of the secret societies from Babylon forward, and prior to that, before the creation of mankind in Genesis 1:1 and 1:2.
In your DVD, and it's basically this. It talks about the cover kind of says it, and it's the Egyptian presence in the American Pacific Rim, the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. Well, they're covering up history, and they're covering up giants, and they're covering up things they've gotten out of America and out of the Pacific Rim that's Egyptian-based, that the Egyptians were far more far-reaching than what anybody would ever imagine. The technology was far better than anybody would imagine. Talk about the what's in the Smithsonian and what they're covering up.
Well, first of all, the cover, as you've shown the cover, it shows a helicopter and special operations extracting an Egyptian mummy from the Grand Canyon. It may surprise people that 95% of the Grand Canyon is off limits. Here's where it gets interesting. Dr. Troy Payway, who is quoted in this DVD, who set up the geology program at Arizona State University, used to take graduate students down the Grand Canyon. He passed away, years ago. But when one of the graduate students, Greg, asked him, why do all of the landforms in the Grand Canyon have Egyptian names, such as Temple of Isis, Temple of Ra, Temple of Horus? And he simply said to the graduate student, and my eyewitness to the Smithsonian was on one of those trips, for the unique artifacts that were found there. Now, if you go back to the Egyptians in the late 1800s, going early 1900s, they'd requested Nubar Pasha, who was the Egyptian, and this is important, this isn't just, it's really important, the Egyptian president requested that all artifacts of value be returned to Egypt and that all giants and all of those things be destroyed. It's why the cover-up of history is the cover-over of true history, and that's why these people that are divorcing Americans, especially college students, this is a generation that the communists longed for because they would believe anything, knowing nothing, and could be persuaded to do their bidding. So the stuff in the Grand Canyon, that was taken from the Grand Canyon, Egyptian mummies, Egyptian idols, Egyptian sarcophaguses, Egyptian amulets, Egyptian jewelry, but the most important thing were the skeletons. Now, skeletons, the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory has now come up with a way to trace back, hundreds of generations, the identity by bone alone, not active DNA, through a new form of electron scanning, and also it's way more complicated than that. But let's just say this: they can read your bones and take you back and tell you who begot who. This is way beyond Ancestry and me or 23.com or whatever. The importance to this is that we're now seeing a invocation of Egyptian gods in America. For instance, obviously, we had Anubis that was paraded through from New York all across the United States, even into Denver. And we have the Temple of Baal. Now, what was unique about Baal
in New York City?
Yes.
They had an Arch of Baal in New York City.
Yes. And what's interesting, Baal demanded the lives of innocent children, babies, to be burned or to be slit, their throats slit. Now, somebody says, well, that's really gross. What does this have to do with contemporary politics? Contemporary politics is controlled by a supernatural evil that these men and women who control the finances, not all of them, and the mainstream media, they are all adepts. They are all initiates into the secret religion. So when Aldous Huxley makes that statement that by pharmacology and through occult means, the world at the end time is going to be controlled by that, then you've got to understand that the world right now, we're seeing unparalleled and unequaled multiple events coming down that just quite candidly are astonishing in their intensity. Volcanoes going off worldwide, some of the biggest volcanoes. And by the way, Greg, if you don't think the mainstream media controls the narrative, Krakatoa, which is one of the biggest volcanoes in the history, recorded history, that went off in 1883, the thing that was left after it exploded was basically Anak, the son of Krakatoa. That's what Anak means, or Anak means in Indonesian language. But Anak was the king of the giants. Now, why is this even related? Because the 9.5 earthquake that happened there, the biggest in 100 years, the earthquake that is the most pronounced earthquake of magnitude. And by the way, they claim it went to 10 plus because it ran off their seismographs. But the point is this, is that isn't it astonishing that a volcano in Indonesia that was one of the two biggest incorporated in the recorded history, and it's the biggest volcano, biggest earthquake, is not being reported? Why? If they're covering it up, there is a reason. And let me share this about Yellowstone.
What's the reason? Wait. What's the reason?
The reason is because it announced, thank you. The reason is that Anak, or Anak, is the root word of the Anakim, the giants. And all of the ancient historians referred to the time that when these, if you will, these gods, G-O-D-S, little g, would return, it would be in a geological upheaval. I had and why this is relevant, I had a lady who was with her children.
Did it uncover them? Did it uncover the giants?
Well, forgive me. At this point, the thing has gone into an eruptive phase, but people are claiming they're seeing all sorts of quote-unquote spiritual entities. And as the spiritual entities are increasing in their sightings, so are the flying saucers. Now, and we don't need to get into that. What we're seeing here, you guys, and this is my opinion, and Greg, I know you'll take heat for this, but if people will do their homework, they've got to start looking at why is something being covered up? Why is the Grand Canyon being covered up? Why is the history of giants, which there are 1,000 different reports and newspapers from the late 1800s? Then you find out that John Wesley Powell, who was a director and curator of the Smithsonian, formed a thing called the Cosmos Club. And he wanted to dispel the idea of any form of cross-sea navigation or influence, and he wanted to tell everybody that the world was isolated. Well, and that's called the doctrine of isolation. And what we know is that if the Egyptians were in the Grand Canyon of the Pacific Rim about 235 BC, then that also ties in. And how do we know that? Because of the star positions. And for the record, there was because of the star positions and the positions of the different geological and giant-made structures. The giant-made structures are the megalithic structures that are all over the world that line up with celestial coordinates or planetary coordinates. One of the stories out of Egypt about 3 days ago was, for the first time in close to 2,400 years, the same projections, if you project the location of the Great Pyramid of Giza and the two lesser pyramids lining up with the specific stars they do line up with, that hasn't happened. So it's important for people to understand. When I was on Greg Hunter's show, and now I'm going to go to Antarctica, the Antarctica revelation I said would lead to Mars. And I said the next thing that will be happening was Mars. You remember that when I was on your show?
Yeah.
Okay, and then look at all the stories about Mars. Now it has water. Now it has microbial life form. Now it's got this. Now it's got that. Then there's so it's progressing. It's all leading us to that point where the aliens created us, and that's what the rulers of this world are in cahoots with, and they are fallen angels.
That's a lie. The aliens created us is a huge lie.
Yes, it is. And so, but people are going to believe it. But who do the people that want to persuade the existing population or the remaining population to believe that? They've got to get rid of the Christians. That's why there's an attack on the Bible. Good night. Billboards, the snowflakes, and I have another word for them, but I won't use it on your show. The snowflakes are protesting because there's a billboard for a preacher, Greg Laurie, and he's holding a book, the Bible. Well, listen, when they burn Bibles, they burn you. And so this is why this root of evil is a supernatural root of evil. I get emails from people seeing stuff that, quite candidly, I believe is real. And I want to say, go to the volcanoes. The volcanoes erupting simultaneously and the magnitude of the eruptions, Kilauea, for instance, you're just seeing the beginning of how bad it's going to get. Nobody wants to deal with global ash. Nobody wants to deal with ash in the upper atmosphere. That's because we got a bunch of dumb ashes, ASHES, that are trying to control the narrative. The cooling that's going on in some areas. Geoengineering simply means, if people doubt that weather control and modification is real, go read the Air Force 2025 publication, We Control the Weather. I mean, they already do. They're not waiting until 2025. And understand this, Greg, that it all is enveloped in the political realm. The fact that Donald Trump is believing that God's people make intercession for him and prayers, and the black community is shunning the black pastors that say, look, he's not a racist, he's a realist. This guy is doing. I have a past, you have a past. I'm not proud of my past, but as a Christian, I can say, thank God that there is forgiveness. And I do understand that the war is becoming more and more spiritual. You know, the first thing we do, I saw a T-shirt and a guy who had horns. This was up in Whitefish, Montana, at a hotel, and he had a T-shirt that said, Christians, your day is coming. Well, I'm telling you this, Christians, your day is here. Full-scale persecution is underway. The first they identify you, now they're vilifying. All the world's problems are based on Christians. Then they nullify you, meaning we got to get rid of the Christians. And then at some point, I don't know when that comes, but they start destroying. Now in America, that hasn't happened yet. It's happening in Kenya. It's happening even in Canada now. Canada, because they have a prime minister that is pro-Islam and absolutely hates Christianity. The thing is that if you even preach or even speak out against transgender, you can go to prison. Did you know that, Greg?
Yeah. I know. It's
yeah.
They call him True Dope. I have a bunch of Canadians that write me, and they call him not Justin Trudeau, Justin True Dope. But yeah. I want to come back. I want to come back to this. Terminator. We were talking about this in the pre-interview. That the killers and we're talking about Mark Cuban worried about this. I have those up right at the beginning of the year. You know, Mark Cuban, AI. If you think that Terminators will not appear, you're crazy. Also, not Tesla.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk at Tesla. Elon Musk, well, brilliant guy too. But anyway, but they want to identify you, and then they want to kill you based on your free speech. Can you talk about that? That you think that is coming? That they want to identify you and destroy anybody who thinks that doesn't follow the company line of you or Alex Jones or Ron Paul or anybody else.
Well, absolutely, and that's why the pre-thought, the brain mapping is such an important issue with these guys, Greg. They're mapping the human brain. They already know how to put thoughts into people's mind. Really, there are people who say that are under electronic mind control are not crazy. All you have to do is look up MK Ultra, the history of MK Ultra. And maybe, Greg, you should put the URL to that report. That report I sent you is that important. But the thing that AI is doing now is it's pre-screening those who are basically not going to toe the line that the algorithm assassination writers have introduced, have a set of parameters. And those parameters or design, I would say, instructions are already doing what people used to have to wait for the knock on the door of the Nazis. We're coming into a point, ladies and gentlemen, where autonomous killing machines, AKMs, little drones the size of your thumb, which hover on telephone lines and draw power, can literally put a zap into your forehead and you're dead with a micro explosive. We're coming to that point. And so the thing is, people say, well, give us a solution. Don't give us all this bad news. I'm telling you this, if you don't see what's going on, then there is no solution for you. If you deny what's going on, then what good would it give you to have a solution to a problem you don't even believe exists? And at the end of the day, when all of these things have a spiritual evil root, the only thing I know in the realm of the spirit world that can overcome the spirit is that power that Jesus gives his believers to cast out devils in his name. The problem is, Greg, Jesus' believers, the professing church, not the true church, the true followers of the living God. Church means called out one. So let me say this. The followers of Jesus Christ, the obedient followers of Jesus, are going to experience a miraculous realm that has not been seen even since the time of the apostles. Jesus said he goes to the Father, but he said, you're going to do even greater things than I did. And I say all the time to the Lord in prayer, I said, Lord, isn't it time to see that manifesting? Because evil is manifesting, it's open. They don't hide any longer. They're no longer occluded, which is a derivation of the word occult, which means hidden. They're in plain sight. And it infuriates me that so many people are playing into their hands. It just infuriates me. By the way, let me explain what's going on. Am I coming through to you with a clear signal?
Yes, very clear.
Okay.
And you're being recorded.
Yes, okay. But on my screen, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the second time it's happening, my face is totally modeled, and by that I'm saying I'm pixelated. I look like, if any of you know what solarized photographs do, I just sent Greg, by the way, a picture of this so I could document it. But the point is, that's happening again, Greg. Notice that it happened the last time we were talking about spiritual stuff. Now, you and I both know that to be politically correct is going to cost people their lives, and it's going to cost them their eternal life. Some people say, I don't care about eternal life. That's when you're 40 or 50. But when you start approaching the grave and know that there's a real hell, and a real hell, the perfect example of a hell by physics is a fusion plasma, if you will, container. The only way you can contain a plasma of superheated gas is to simply put it into a magnetic field. And so what we're dealing with is a literal hell, but before that time where evil goes into hell, hell comes up. It says, in the Bible, and I think people have got to understand this. This whole concept is not even it existed. It pre-existed before the Christian revelation, the time God chose to put Jesus into the world. It was prior to that. When the psalmist talks about you'll not be afraid of the terror that comes by night, that was Lilith the night hag. That was a female demoness. Okay, so prior to this, every culture that I have studied, both pre-Adam, that means the cultures before Adam, the Golden Age, Shangri-La, Shambhala, Atlantis, Ultima Thule, and all the other legendary civilizations that passed away. Even Atlantis historically was destroyed by cataclysms when the Atlanteans got into genetic animal mutations. And by the way, the word unicorn exists in the Bible. The word satyr exists in the Bible.
Giants exist in the Bible in
Giants.
6. Giants.
Yep. Yeah, but there's 30.
Watchers exist in the Bible.
Watchers, 33 times in the Bible, the Old Testament, it talks about the Rephaim. The Rephaim are the giants. The Nephilim were the fallen angels. It's translated 2 times in the Old Testament, once before the flood and after the flood as giants. But the correct reading of that, and people will argue ad nauseum, but when the giants died, that disembodied hybrid spirit became the demons. Demons have self-awareness. When Jesus rebuked them and cast them out of the Gadarene demoniac, basically they were begging Jesus to let them go into pigs, And I'm afraid there's a lot of demons that went into a lot of pigs, and unfortunately they're political pigs, and they only owe allegiance to Satan.
I mean, you think they're going to mark anybody who believes in free speech and the Constitution and God the Father? You think they're marked for death, basically?
Yes.
In the end.
Yep.
I mean, some people are going to say, "Oh, come on, it's not going to get that bad." But what would you say to them that say people in free speech marked for death, that they're going to identify you and destroy you?
Right. Years ago, when I started on talk radio, I had the head of an environmental protection agency, a certain department. I don't want to cause his family any grief. He got a hold of me. And those of you that remember me talking on talk radio about the red list, the blue list, and the green list. The red list was those who would be terminated immediately when their plan goes into implementation. Greg, it was composed of primarily Christians, gun owners, constitutionalists, people that believe in the Bill of Rights, people who were outspoken, even to the point of people writing and complaining against the New World Order. The blue list was composed of policemen, law enforcement, National Guard, and military who could be counted on to follow orders, as good soldiers do, to go out and take out the red list. Then after a certain time period, by the way, I called him, what did I call him? I had a name for him on the radio. That wasn't his real name. But after they took out the red list, the blue list people being, again, law enforcement, National Guard, military, they would be taken out by the foreign armies that are already present in this country. The green lists are those who stood for nothing, would speak for nothing, that could be used and brainwashed into becoming, if you will, the ultimate drones and killer bees. That man was murdered after. So now here's the thing too, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, go ahead. Finish up.
Go ahead. No, you
asked. No, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the thing too. Go ahead. Finish your thing.
Well, here's the thing. How many murders are taking place of anybody associated with Hillary's emails? Now that you know that even the State Department is covering her up, and the most prestigious, or once was most prestigious, law enforcement's covering up, and then you've got this fake war on Trump. Now, here's what the war on Trump is about, Greg. Bring me back. The war on Trump was to control the narrative, to keep the truth from coming out of the sale of the nuclear materials to Russia. Hello, that wasn't done by President Trump. So they went into combat mode to try and destroy him with a trivial, and it's trivial from the standpoint is that we're talking about traitors taking on the President of the United States for having conversation. Then the fact that they're terrified of what Vladimir Putin might tell him is even more astonishing. These people will go to nuclear war before they will allow their fortunes and their families to perish. And so when I say I know, I have had that confirmed. I had a 4-star general, Spec Ops, call me, maybe 8 years ago, and said, let me tell you how advanced it is, Steve. And he went into such detail as to how they're going to do it. And for the record, it's always the same story. It's insiders telling insiders, and the only way you or I, Greg, can check the veracity, so we're not getting a feedback loop of our own stuff, is to keep certain things not publicly known, but you know them, and you know that you've had multiple witnesses to that, and then when you get told it by someone who's unrelated to the people that have told you the information that you have multiple witnesses to, you can probably have a good clue it's real. So this is how the red list, the blue list, and the green list came about. And that was by a brave man that cost him his life, who, by the way, was a Christian. So why am I saying this? Because Jesus is the truth. He is the way and the life. And I'm not preaching, I'm teaching here. There is an objective truth in the universe. Oh yeah, you don't think so? Go jump off a cliff, liberals, and see if you don't, and make it 5,000 feet or something at least dramatic and film it and put it on YouTube. I was checking to see if that was real, that I really would die. The point is, you will die. The thing that, without a parachute, without a paraglider, blah, 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 just with unaided, you will die. The thing that is problematic, Greg, is everybody wants to embrace a lie, but they don't want to even investigate the claims that Jesus made.
But the Donald Trump thing, I mean, Trump is fighting back. They have all these warrants. They have all this other stuff. They're scared to death of him. I mean, there is some good in this world, right? I mean, there is some good news.
Oh, there is good news. Jesus said that we're not to fear. He said, fear not. He said, the world is the world. And by the way, Jesus made this statement, the whole world lies in the evil one. But then he says to his followers, but fear not, for I have overcome the world. Jesus also said, my kingdom is not of this world, or else would my servants fight. Now, there will come a time to fight, because Matthew, 10 says, the kingdom of God suffers violence, and the violence take it by force. I'm not a pacifist, Greg. Neither are you. If someone comes to hurt my family, I better be faster, I better be clearer, and I better be quicker, And for the times that I cannot protect, I've had times in my life where I've done everything to try and control a situation that was deadly, God intervenes. So there is a protection, a supernatural protection, or else there'd be no Christianity on the earth. But these people have assassination algorithms. In other words, let me make it really simple. Check off these issues. Does he believe in the Constitution? Check. Does he believe in the Bill of Rights? Check. Is he a Christian? Check. Does he believe in family? Check. These checks mean you're on the red list. Does he believe in homeschooling? Double check. Is he against abortion? Triple check. Does he attend Bible study? Check. Does he attend church? And then they'll qualify which kind of church. If you don't get a check, they say that's not relevant. Does he have social influence? Then you get into the degree of social influence. Do you know that there's an algorithm on you? There's an algorithm on me. There's an algorithm on anybody who has talk radio programs, who writes columns for News with Views or Doug Hagman. They all have algorithms. And one thing that I think is important, Jesus made it clear.
No, wait, stop. Back up. They all have algorithms. What does that mean?
They have already us in their databases, the ones who are going to be taken out first when this thing goes into play.
They're going to try.
They're going to try. Amen. They're going to try. But I can tell you this, it's a little disconcerting when you get a Predator drone over you at 100 feet. I'm in Bozeman, Montana. I'm on Baxter Lane, and that's where the Holiday Inn is. You want to check this out. And the Grand Tree Inn. And I look up, and 100 feet above me, I'm in the helicopters a lot, and I know what 100 feet AGL looks like. Trust me, that means above ground level. And there's a Predator drone, and basically it's an armed Predator drone. And by the way, I know my drones. This wasn't a micro drone. This wasn't a DJI drone. And then what was interesting, probably prior to that by a week, Greg, there's a story that the Air Force is going to run simulated targeting of American citizens. Now, that really happened to me, and I'm sorry, it's true. I don't have to lie, but I'm telling you, when that happens, you know this. It's God who keeps me alive, and it's God who keeps you alive, because, brother, it doesn't matter how many people want to argue with the whole concept of God and Jesus Christ. You and I are alive, and we're warning people, warning. And there comes a time when the warnings cease. So the algorithm is a data bank where everybody is pre-assigned a specific, and I would call it this, an AQ, assassination quotient. Is that specific enough for you?
Yes, it is. Let's talk about your, let's just wrap it up. But before we do, I want to talk about your sellout conference that you say you've already sold out 4,000 seats. You've sold out your conference in Branson, Missouri. Is it the 15th, 14th, 15th, 16th? Is that the right dates?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the whole essence of that is it's the Transhumanism and Hybrid Conference. We're bringing in Hugo de Garis. Look him up. The famous author. By the way, some of the speakers aren't Christians, okay? Some of us are, some of them aren't. But when we can get one of the foremost brain scientists in the world who wrote the Artilect War, Artificial Intellect War, Hugo de Garis, and is on record as saying gigabytes will produce giga death. And his question, he'll be speaking, who will win, humans or robots? My answer to that is, unless something happens drastically, knowing the plans for evil, the only way humans will make it out of this alive is through the grace of God. Then we've got Richard Dolan. Richard's going to talk about the UFO, probably one of the best researchers, and the breakaway civilizations. You know, it's interesting, Greg, after I think 11 books, and I try and get 300 to 400 footnotes in every book, And I don't just come up with this stuff out of nowhere. I'm not sitting here microdosing on LSD to my right, and I'm not 1 toke or 2 tokes or 3 tokes over the line. But what I am sharing with people is this, that this Branson conference is unlike any other conference in the world. If you've not heard Tom Horn speak in person, it is a rare treat and a rare delight. We're going to have Timothy Alberino, who's going to be speaking. And Tim is kind of I've been blessed to have him as an understudy. He's more than capable. He was there last year, delivered a wonderful presentation. We've got Sharon Gilbert, a molecular biologist, a geneticist. And by the way, one of the brightest women I've ever listened to. And what a tremendous source of knowledge. We're going to be talking about the genetics. We're taking everything to the end point. And that is the end of mankind as you now know it, or Mark Cuban's statement. And it's not just Mark Cuban, it's Elon Musk, it's Francis Fukuyama. It all started with Bill Joy's wonderful essay. To all your listeners and readers out there and viewers, go look up Bill Joy's essay, written years ago, the founder of Sun Microsystems, and his wonderful essay, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us Anymore. And I'm telling everybody, the future is now. Everything I'm talking about isn't, yonder years down the road someday. We're at this point now, and nothing they admit to, Greg, that is going to be in the future. They already exist now. So transhumanism and the hybrid age, Branson, Missouri, it's sold out as far as admission tickets, and I think it's 2,950. The thing that people need to do is live stream it. And then for live streaming, we also have the DVDs after. But this is some of the brightest minds. I get to be kind of a conference.
And how many days? Hold on, I'm just going to interrupt you. When you live stream it, you're talking about 8 hours a day. You can buy some live stream. You can log on with my password is Steve Quayle, and then you can just sit there and watch Timothy Alberino or all these other great people, or yourself. You're going to be there too, giving presentations, I'm sure. So you can sit there and watch all the presentations live for 8 hours a day, or 10 hours a day, or how many hours it is, right?
Sure, and if you miss one, you can you can stream it at a later date. But this is something like that is nowhere else in the world right now, and I believe it's critical. I believe it's a key to understanding. So people can live stream. They can go on gen6lowercase.com and sign up for live streaming. The reason they got to do it now is I got balled out last year, Greg. I mean, I got sworn at, told to go, do some things because we didn't have a bigger venue. It's the biggest venue that we've got in Missouri. I'm sorry, but that's the biggest venue. And then people got mad because, they didn't sign up for live streaming. They wanted to do it at the last minute, the last day. And we didn't have the we didn't have the bandwidth. So, by the way, we don't.
Well, stop. The bandwidth. How many did you get last year? How big was the bandwidth last year? How many people could live stream it last year?
I think 2,500.
Okay, and then this year you're going to go. How many people can live stream it this year?
Well, we've made. I think we're set to go to 3,000.
Oh, so you haven't made it that much bigger.
Yep, and so
you have not made the live streaming that much bigger. So you can only there's not an unlimited amount of live streaming either. You got to sign up for that ahead of time.
Right, and talk about the amount of backroom stuff that has to go in. Everybody has to have a unique code, and I've got a wonderful, wonderful company working with me, Jetta Collide Technologies. I mean, this thing is a massive undertaking. By the way, this thing to put on costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
And so what we're trying to tell people is this: when we bring people from all over the world, Hugo DeGaris is coming in from China. Last year we had people present from 15 countries. We had people live streaming from 65 countries. But the thing that's pressing is the fact that there are people in the AI community that are now worried about Tom Horn, the head of Skywatch TV, and myself as being they are calling us the milieu, or if you will, the counter movement to artificial intelligence. In other words, they are making us their enemies because we're not saying it's all hunky-dory, it's going to be wonderful. And so this transhumanism in the hybrid age, people have got to sign up for it now. And I'm going to tell you something. This is going to be different than last year. People loved last year, and they really enjoyed it. We're going to have some stuff there. I've got I think a 13-foot anatomically correct giant that all the Indian legends talk about. Just to put it into perspective, I can talk about giants till I'm blue in the face and people think NBA players. That's not what I'm talking about. We have a live, if you will, we have a skull from a conquistador's chronicler that's basically 6 feet tall, about 3.5, 4 feet deep. It was
the
on my
authentic
website.
skull or a reproduction?
As reproduction.
Yeah.
You know why they won't let us have the authentic skulls? And somebody said, well, why will they cover up the DNA? That's really an intuitive question on your part, Greg, is because with the new technology, they don't want the tie back to fallen angels through the scanning technology to indicate that this is something other than human. You follow me?
Yeah.
Because it will interfere with their whole, what I would call bovine laundry or bullshit, SHEET, statements that we were created out of pond scum and we evolved.
And we were made in God's image, and it's God's plan.
Right? In other words, it's King Jesus, not King Kong.
Yeah, King Jesus, I love it. I have no problem putting that on the air. Listen, we've done 45 minutes or so. We've only scratched the surface. I guess you could still get live streaming for your conference, the 14th, 15th, and 16th in Branson, Missouri. How do you get involved? How do you get? You go to stevequayle.com. Is that on the front page?
It's on the front page, but you can also skip that and go to gen6.com, GENSIX.com. Go to the right lower fourth of the page, and there's a live streaming link right there. Maybe you can put it up, Greg. It's just off of my.
How much does it cost to live stream it?
$100.
And you get the whole conference?
Yep.
Huh, that's pretty good. You get 3 days.
You get 3 days.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's like you're there. All right. Well, listen. It's Steve Quayle. The new DVD, which I'm sure you're selling at the conference. And that is the, I'm going to go in here to one screen here. Hold on. Yeah, the Forbidden History. I watched it. It was amazing. The Egyptian presence and in the Americas and Pacific Rim, and the Great Smithsonian cover-up, and how they have all this stuff. Also, the book. It is Terminated. It's going to be a lot of what your conference is all about. It's a thick book. It's a lot to it. You get your money's worth with it. Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Steve Quayle, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.